It's K8BYP in the Ham Shack doing some antenna research. I'm writing 2 articles or papers or whatever they will end up being. One for CQ Magazine, one for IEEE on the antenna research I've been doing. And I found something extremely interesting with all the letters and extremely capitalized. If you see in my videos, I've explained that antennas are not circuits. They do not have impedance, nor do transmission lines. Doesn't make any difference what the antenna analyzer says at the feed point. It's not an RLC circuit, doesn't behave like it. I've explained that from comparing circuit and electromagnetic theory. But here at IEEE is a proof of that. Scientific proof that I was right. The Foster reactance theorem and quality factor for antennas. I have a video on Foster's theorems here of how Ronald Foster, developed a theory of circuit resonance. And quality factor, the Q factor, similar to the way it's used in circuits, is also used with antennas. But it gets a little bit on shaky ground if you ask me. But the illusion and the myth are that because we put an electrical measuring instrument like that says impedance and it reads out R plus or minus X, that somehow that means the antenna is that. And the antenna is not that. It makes no difference what it says on the front of the box. It doesn't matter how important we look or feel using the box. The results are wrong. And this mythical impedance model has been used both by amateurs and engineers for decades, and it is wrong. Unfortunately, it's really, really difficult to do any other analysis without it, because there's no such thing as a meter in a box that can measure the summation of all the fields around an antenna. It does not exist, because they're huge three-dimensional fields. But the point of this paper is as follows: the validity of the Foster's reactance theorem, and again I did a video on that, for the general lossless or lossy antenna is considered for the straight wire monopole and half-loop antennas. The finite diameter lossy or lossless monopole and half-loop behave as either a series RLC circuit near resonance or a parallel RLC near anti-resonance, which means at resonance it appears to be no reactance and a resistive characteristic, or anti-resonance, pretty much an open circuit. For the Foster reactance theorem to be valid for the general antenna, the frequency derivative of the antenna's feed point reactance, X prime omega, which is essentially the derivative of the reactance, because X omega refers to reactance, which is reactance, and omega is the frequency component, must be positive for all values of frequency. This behavior is not consistent with that of a parallel RLC circuit near anti-resonance, and therefore, here it is, proof I was right. The Foster reactance theorem is not valid for either the lossy or the lossless finite diameter antenna. One more time, reactance and circuit theories are not valid for antennas. I was absolutely correct. So there it is. That is document 1360183. You might be able to find that across Google. And there's a citation, IEEE Antennas and Wireless Propagation Letters, Volume 3, pages 306, 309, 2004. In spec as session number 8240180, what the heck ever that is. Publisher IEEE. Not the unadulterated, smoldering pile of bullshit that ARL has published for 100 years. And that is exactly the analogy for the crap they publish. It is worthless, it is useless, it is worse than useless because it's flawed. So grossly oversimplified as to not only be useless, but worse, prevents the radio amateur from learning anything about antennas and science and prevents them from optimizing the antenna, except for maybe some wild guessing, and that is not science. And when propagation conditions are highly variable, it's almost impossible to guess and get any improvements, because we can pretend that throwing a hammer on the ground under the antenna is going to make a difference, and go out and throw a hammer down and come back in, and 40 meters has come up 10 dB, and we say, the hammer made a difference. And it's pure BS. The smoldering BS that ARL has published is not for education, not for science. It's for the most grossly oversimplified pablum, presented as religious dogma, beliefs with no proof, to try to get this in the minds of the most number of people by buying their books. And that's what's behind a scam called ARL, who have claimed to have had engineers all these years, but none of them could find this. I just found through a Google search. But I dare ignore everything published by amateurs, and I go into the engineering and science world. And that's what it takes. So, antennas are not circuits. They do not have impedance. There's no such thing as capacitance at the feed point, except for where there is. The antenna itself is not capacitive or inductive, nor impedance, nor is it resistive. Because as in my other videos, if it was resistive, it would destroy the energy. There'd be nothing transmitted. So, KBYP proven absolutely correct. Did it.